Welcome back to Close Up. He's the longest tenured candidate in the 2020 primary, but he's running out of time to break through in this race. Former Congressman John Delaney is our guest this morning on Close Up.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So the impeachment trial is underway in Washington, and we know that there are four of your competitors who are essentially stuck there for perhaps up to a couple of weeks dealing with this situation. From the political standpoint, do you think this gives you a little bit of an opening, being on the ground in Iowa and New Hampshire, to try and get your foot in the door?
Well, Adam, I don't really look at it that way, because I think the work they're doing is obviously incredibly important, and I think people will see them doing that work, and they'll have an opportunity to talk about their campaign, and I'm sure they'll get up here. So I don't really think that matters. I think what really matters is my message to voters and the fact that I'm out there campaigning as hard as possible.
The position of your campaign right now, you've been at this for pretty much 3 years. How much of your situation right now is on you, and how much do you think has to do with the DNC rules that have so greatly shaped this race?
Well, I think what the DNC did is they nationalized the race very early, and they took away the role of New Hampshire and Iowa in some respects by effectively creating what I like to call the social media primary before the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary. And I think that was unfortunate, and I think the democracy loses, because the voters here in New Hampshire, just like they are in Iowa, are very skilled at figuring out candidates. Not just what their ideas are, but what kind of person they are. Why are they doing this? Because in many ways, that's the most important question. Why do you want to be the president of the United States? And, you can figure that out when you meet people in their living rooms, in their coffee shop. And this race got way too nationalized too soon. But I get the sense New Hampshire and even Iowa, they're trying to take it back and get back to that personal level of campaigning.
Back to impeachment, and parallel to that situation, the Government Accountability Office is now saying that the Trump administration broke the law when it withheld aid from Ukraine. From a wider lens here, you can see this in the pattern of growing executive power over the last decades of the 20th century and up until now. If you are president, are you going to accept any restrictions on executive power that perhaps gets things back to a constitutional norm?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think I wasn't surprised by the GO's report today, because I thought the president broke the law when the story first broke. But one of the problems in our country at this moment in time, and it's been happening over the last, say, 2 decades, is Congress is broken. And as a result, the courts and the president, in many ways, have become too powerful. If you think about all the major decisions that are affecting our lives, they're being made by the President of the United States through executive authority, and that's been a bipartisan problem, right? Democrats and Republicans have done it. And the courts, right? Because the courts are really deciding policy in this country, because people are fighting out all their policy differences in the courts. And that's because Congress is broken, and it's not passing laws, and it's not addressing the issues we have. So one of the things I'm committed to as president is actually working with Congress and getting Congress working again, because it's that representative democracy that's supposed to drive a lot of the policy making in this country, with the president really being the person who sets the tone at the top, obviously implements the law, but actually acts as a model for the country and appealing to the better angels in all of us.
And you were hoping to get a lot passed, because as a former congressman, you've been there. One of your plans is the National Service Plan, and within that is a climate core. Very interested in this, essentially trying to get young people involved in doing things that will help change the course of climate change right now. But how do they do that? Usually that's sometimes skilled labor in terms of you talk about green energy and things like that. How do you get people just coming out of high school to do something about climate change?
So first of all, I think everyone who graduates from high school should serve their country, and we should create an opportunity for them to do that. And it could either be the military, it could be part of an infrastructure program, it could be doing community service, or it could be part of this climate corps, which was my new idea on national service. And they'd get stationed all over the country. They'd get mixed with kids from all different communities. They'd realize they have a lot in common, and there would be a skills building component with it. And in the Climate Corps, for example, I think what they could do is work on energy efficient infrastructure in local communities. They could help our seniors retrofit their homes for energy efficiency. A lot of us have already done that in our homes, but a lot of people haven't. And I just think it would be extraordinary to have young people engaged in service, period, and the Climate Corps being one aspect of it. And the reason I think it's important is so many young people want to do something to make a difference in our sustainability. And I think the Climate Corps is a perfect way for them to do that. But I think national service, in many ways, Adam, is the most important thing we need in this country, because we need to reassert this notion that everyone has responsibility to their country and to their fellow Americans. And the best way to do that is with national service.
When it comes to climate change and the consequences of climate change, everybody wants to live next to the water, right? And it's usually at the state or the local level where we decide who gets to live where and how close to the ocean, these kinds of things that happens. But the consequences often, if there's a disaster, end up with FEMA, and national taxpayers end up footing the bill. Do you see any changes coming in that regard in terms of trying to perhaps discourage rebuilding in vulnerable areas?
Yeah, I think, listen, if someone is in a vulnerable area and a devastating storm, wipes out their house or has extensive damage, if it wipes out their house like Superstorm Sandy did, obviously I believe we need to step forward and make sure they're compensated for the loss. But that doesn't mean we have to create an incentive for them to go right back in the same place and potentially have that same event happen to them again in 10, 20 years and have the taxpayers have to foot the bill again. So I think as part of these programs, you obviously have to take care of people if they have a loss, but then I think you can create incentives for them to start living in places that don't have as much risk. Or if they decide to live in a place that has a lot of risk, to some extent, that's got to be their risk.
On immigration, in a Delaney administration, what will change at these migrant detention centers?
Well, first of all, I'll push to pass a law that we cannot separate children from their parents, period. No exceptions, no matter how someone wants to work around it. I don't think as a country that's a reflection of who we are as a people, that we let a child be separated from their parents. So that's one thing that'll change. The second thing is I'll work to pass comprehensive immigration reform, which will deal with so many of our immigration issues, including issues at the border. My wife April and I, we went to one of these facilities a year ago. We took 14 law students and 2 law professors on a trip that we sponsored to actually go to the largest detention facility in the United States of America, which is in Dilley, Texas. And we helped for a week asylum seekers make their case. So I saw what was happening at these facilities, and I think there's a lot we need to do.
Immigration and healthcare, a very sensitive issue here. And your background is in healthcare, so you know a lot of the uncompensated care that comes through the door can be from people who are undocumented and not plugged into the system. Obviously, as I mentioned, controversial, the idea of paying in some way for healthcare for undocumented folks. But what is the solution? Because those costs land to the consumer one way or the other.
We have a law in this country that says if you go to the emergency room, you have to get taken care of. And I support that law, and it applies obviously to any human being in our country. And that makes sense. But what I also think we need to do is create a universal health care system for American citizens. So that's my vision of health care. Universal health care, where all of our citizens get health care as a basic human right. They have the ability to opt out. They don't have to just take the government plan like some people are pushing for. That's a terrible idea. But then also we have that ultimate safety net protection in emergency rooms. But by getting every American citizen universal health care, it'll get a lot of people out of the emergency rooms into primary care, into preventative care, and those kind of things.
A lot of undecided voters out there. What is the pitch from John Delaney right now to people who, and there are a lot of them out there, just now tuning into the race?
So the pitch is, first of all, why am I doing it? This is not about me. When my wife and I decided to enter public service, that was the thing we said to ourselves. We can make a difference. This is not about us. I grew up in a blue-collar family. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I was a successful entrepreneur, created thousands of jobs, and then I served in the Congress of the United States. That's a very different background, and it gives me a very different perspective, not only about what public service is, which is not my career, it's my way of trying to make a difference in the world, and that's what I'll bring to the job as presidency. It's not about me, it's about the people. But also I'm a doer. I'm a problem solver. You wouldn't start 2 businesses from scratch, take them public on the New York Stock Exchange, then roll up your sleeves and run for Congress and become the 3rd most bipartisan member of Congress if you weren't a problem solver. And that's what our country needs. It's kind of what I said earlier. Congress is broken. It doesn't do anything. And our country's paying a huge price. We need a president that actually wants to unify this nation, restore a sense of common purpose to who we are as a people, and actually start solving problems, whether it's healthcare, immigration, improving public schools, making sure young people have jobs in every community, doing things to lift wages, making sure that all this technological innovation, which is extraordinarily positive, also plays out positively for our workers. These are the kind of things I want to do as president. I'm a problem solver, and I'll bring this country together.
All right, John Delaney, thanks for joining us on Close Up.
Adam, thank you.
We'll see you out there on the trail.
Absolutely.